Welcome back to What You Missed, a video game news show where I discuss articles that occurred within days to a week ago that you may have missed that are important to the video game industry and possibly to you. Today, I am going to be looking at an article from the New York Times, and this one is called, Why Some Men Don't Work. Video Games Have Gotten Really Good. Now, this is a very obvious clickbaity kind of article here. There is some science to it, and I wanted to address it because I absolutely can't stand articles that are titled like this in such a ridiculous manner. It's in a way to get people riled up, upset, and so it does its job well, but I don't think it is accurate whatsoever. So let's get into it. The title, first of all, seems very generic. It seems very afraid to be poignant enough because it uses a blanket statement, some, rather than just stating why men don't work. By using the phrasing some, it ensures that if someone gets offended or argues against this article, that it's the hashtag not all, and thus can be said about anything, basically, or anyone. Some people do this, some people do that, and it makes for a weak argument. The question is asked, could innovations of leisure like League of Legends be taking men out of the labor force today? Two things. One, this omits women for some reason, thus assuming this person is either going to be focusing on men alone for some reason, and that creates a gap of discrediting the idea that women indeed too do play video games, and this can be applied to them. And secondly, leisure is assuming that people are playing video games for leisure alone, not for competition, puzzle solving, or some other means besides entertainment. Again, discrediting the idea that video games can be more than just leisure. This article cites a paper released by the National Bureau of Economic Research. These economics are arguing that games help explain why younger men are working fewer hours. Now, before we go any further, before we look at this paper that was published, if we even look at it, I want you to think to yourself, in your own area, why are young men aged 16-30 not working as many hours or working fewer? Here in America, there are several reasons. Laziness could potentially be one, and thus laziness is often accompanied by a desire to not be bored, resulting in video games being played along with other things. However, I believe that there is much more massive things at play here, like companies treating people like dirt, not wanting people to work over certain hours to avoid giving them benefits, layoffs, lack of employment, if any, lack of transportation to a job, if any, and the list goes on and on. By 2015, American men 31 to 55 were working about 163 fewer hours a year than that of the same age group that did in 2000. Men 21 to 30 were working 203 fewer hours a year. One puzzle is why the working hours for men fell so much more than those of their older counterparts. The gap between the two groups grew by about 40 hours a year, or a full work week on average. And again, I must reiterate that when I was going into the army at age 18, I played a lot of video games, but also the area I was from lost a lot of jobs. Factories like GM, General Motors, and AK Steel had shut down, along with several other locations. The ones that were open were pretty terrible. They slashed benefits, cut pensions, healthcare, no retirement, and asked many people to double or triple down hours. Days went from 8 to 12-hour days, and maybe that would last for weeks sometimes, and then layoffs. That's really difficult on people to do. So to say video games are the cause of men working less hours, I have a great feeling that the working class, the young men that would fall into this category, would rather be broke than treated poorly and break their bodies down. Other experts have pointed out a host of reasons. Globalization, technology change, the shift to service work, that employers may not be hiring young men. Instead of looking at why employers don't want young men, this group of economists considered a different question. Why don't young men want to work? So the question is asked, why don't young men want to work? Like, are you serious? Who wants to work? Who out there is dying to break their backs, go through emotional and mental abuse, spend time away from their families for someone else? No one wants to work. We do it for money. Things are massively different now from the 80s and the 90s. Food is cheaper. Food stamps are easily gotten. Electronics, games, movies, TVs, all easily easily attained. What once cost $600 to $700 10 years ago now costs $25. I saw a $300 TV at Goodwill for $3. And though many people would not want this technology now, it is not hard to live poorly but still have access to these things. That's my point. Less work is now needed because the internet, because competition, because advancements. So why would men want to break their bodies down after seeing what their parents look like after doing the same thing? My parents had dreams, and they were crushed by factories and nursing homes with menial jobs that really didn't further their personal health skills or life in general. It just got them by. When is enough enough? When does the job you do become enough to make you personally content? The reason we work is because we have to, and sadly, it often results in us becoming sick, beaten down in some way, and by the time we're 50 or 60, we're either so busted down we can no longer work, or those same people become Walmart greeters. The article goes on to show that young men increased their playtime from 2012 to 2015, and I also think this is for numerous reasons as well. But it also cites that younger women and older men did not increase in the same way. Personally, I think this can be explained for a number of reasons as well. Taking into account the aforementioned employment and several other reasons I've already mentioned, video games have become mainstream, and our culture is and has been made more gaming friendly. It's safer to interact with people online, to a point. When I grew up, people literally made fun of me because I loved video games so much, and the joke's on them because all of those people are either now dead or in prison. And I, however, have a great job and life thanks to my knowledge of gaming and my subscribers. So thanks, guys. But now these days, you play video games and no one bats an eye. It's again no longer a mother's basement hobby. Just like computers are very mainstream, video games are just as much. And the ability to play video games without rejection is a big comfort too. Where I live, women hold extremely high standards for some ridiculous reason. I live in a small town. This isn't a big city. So unless you have a nice car and make a lot of money, good luck getting a substantial, meaningful, long-lasting relationship instead of just some random hookups. That's how it is. That's how it is in my own personal experience, but yours could be different as well. It doesn't matter if you're big or small. It doesn't matter if you're skinny or thick. That's how it goes where I live. The article goes on to explain that time spent on chores or childcare was not going up. And again, would you rather play Call of Duty or take care of the dog duty? This is somehow rocket science to these people. Like, wow, man. Young men who are not forced to accept the mantle of family responsibility would rather play games than do chores. What an amazing find. In some ways, the increase in video game time for men makes sense. Median wages for men have been stagnant for decades. Over the same period, the quality of video games has grown significantly. In the 1990s, games like Super Mario Bros. Were little more than 8-bit virtual toys. Today, you and your closest buddies can go on a quest in games like World of Warcraft that lasts for days. Large social video games did not become hugely popular until the release of World of Warcraft in like 2004. These games are very different from more rudimentary games like Pong and Space Invaders that older men grew up playing. While the portion of this article explaining how in-depth and large-scale video games have become is somewhat accurate, I also think that it discounts what young men were doing when earlier video games were around. This is a newer medium, only existing the last 40 years, and thus, again, it wasn't mainstream enough to be enjoyed by all. And again, as aforementioned, if TVs and laptops were more easily accessed in the 80s and the 90s and early 2000s, do you think that logically more people would have played them then? Experts say that the social aspect is particularly important. Quote, games provide a sense of waking in the morning with one goal. I'm trying to improve this skill. Teammates are counting on me and my online community is relying on me, said Jane, a video game scholar and game designer. Quote, there is a routine and daily progress that does a good job at replacing traditional work. I cannot speak for other people, but I do think that certain games encourage getting good. Dark Souls series coined that expression, so basically it shows that some video games do encourage. I also think that some games are designed to be addictive, like Destiny with this massive grind system, and these differences appeal to different people in different ways. Some people can see it as a challenge, something to be overcome and be done with. Others see it as a completion, 100% finish the game. and some see it just as entertainment. Most forms of entertainment have some form of stopping cue, signals that remind you that a certain act or episode is ending, like a commercial or a timer. Quote, "Many video games don't have them," Mr. Alter said. "They're built to be an endless or have long-range goals that we don't like to abandon." The use of many is, again, a defensive form, and basically it's saying that not all, not few, but a lot. Can you cite some examples here? Like, for example, Destiny has no real end goal. As DLC continues the series, new things come about, and Destiny 2 is coming out, but it does have an end. Just as many people can rewatch movies, so can you continue to play a game even when it's over. And many games have an ending. You see what I did there? See? Many games. You see how never mind. Let's just finish this up. Mr. Hurst argues that women are more likely to choose the types of mobile games that people tend to play while doing something else, like riding in a car or standing in line. The time use survey captures only people's primary activities, not the secondary nature of casual mobile gaming like Candy Crush. I've discussed this before. All people play throwaway mobile games at times. Whether it's a soccer mom or a factory worker, most people have downloaded some game on their phone and tried messing with it at some point. So this is no surprise to me. The analyst also did not count activities like using Facebook and Snapchat or browsing the web. Time spent on those activities did not grow as much as time spent on video games. I guess that's because they didn't count them. You didn't really have to add that end tagline there, article. Now, that is very funny to see. Here we go again. People taking video games and trying to show that this is such a horrible medium. Look at how it's preventing young men from working more. But then completely neglecting their own liberal use of things like Facebook and YouTube. I would love to see how much time young men and women have increased using the internet versus working hours. Some economists are skeptical of the conclusions, pointing out that the labor force participation rates for young men in other countries where video games are popular, like Japan, have not fallen in a similar fashion. Well, that proves again social constructs and the mainstream acceptance of video games changes the attitude, where Japan is very accepting and America just recently in the last 20-ish years started accepting it countrywide, and you can see the difference. Young non-college educated men, the group most likely to be home playing video games, are more likely to say that they are happy than similar men decades ago. Older non-college educated men are the unhappier ones. Basically, people are happier not breaking their backs to make ends meet and working their lives away. Again, what a shocker, these amazing findings. According to Mr. Hurst, young men may be simply shuffling around the years in their life that they want to work. Quote, "Why not have a little fun in your 20s and work in your 80s, he said. Of course, that assumes that young Americans who choose video games over work, a group for whom there is no historical data, will be able to find good jobs someday. What is good? That's a fairly subjective term, yet again. And they won't be seduced by the kinds of games available in 2070. And that sums it up perfectly there. I wonder if there really even will be jobs by then that people can get. Will stores be digital mostly with a few workers per 100,000s of robots? Will factories be all robotic? Will there be robotic waitresses and waiters? At the end of the day, if even now people are trying hard to find work, do you really think that this will magically change after a few years? If there was a help wanted sign on every corner, people were treated well, nicely, not abused, not used, and then fired or laid off, do you think people would really opt out of work? Personally, I know that there are some lazy people out there. They just won't work, and that's fine. But to keep buying video games, to keep their cell phones on, to have electric, water, and a house, they need some kind of job. And if they have a job and they work fewer hours, what's the problem? It's their choice not to marry. It's their choice to work less. It's their choice to not have a family. It's their choice to support themselves with however much money they can produce. Let them, I say. That will provide an opportunity for those who are willing to work harder and make something of themselves versus the lazy folks who just simply don't want to or are content with way less. And again, this article just seems to be trying to shame men, specifically young men, into working more, which recently, shaming men of any kind is the in thing to do. And I'm tired of this crap. People will do what they want when they want, and no media publication will ever change that. So ladies and gentlemen, I hope you guys enjoyed this article. I kind of took it apart and pieced it out for you. If you have a differing opinion, please put it in the comment section below, because I would love to get a lot of opinions. And likewise, please click that like button and share this to everyone you know, because the more opinions I can get, the better kind of grasp I have on articles like this. It helps me to debunk them or prove them or deliver more knowledgeable news to you. So let me know. I really appreciate you guys liking and sharing this, and I appreciate you taking the time out to watch this video. I've been your host, Protomario, and I'm signing out. As always, good gaming, God bless, and I hope you young men out there are enjoying your video games.